All systems go as we begin once again onward on our journey. Waking up on our pirate ship in the sky. Wondering what happens next and but just happy to see a sun. Looking down on the clouds. Oh wait. Is that the Wright brothers? Welcome back to Artist Journal January 8th, 2025. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. Making it up as I go along, and thank you once again for joining me and for all of the support on this weird journey through digital art, which I have to say, like I was mentioning on an earlier episode, that going daily, and there's going to be huge exceptions. I may purposefully break the rule, just like the daily thing, just so you don't want the show to be, you don't want to be a captive of the show, so to speak. Right? So, and I'm kind of all about just kind of trying to manage the show while trying to balance everything out. But what I was going to say is one of the observations that come with going daily, the observations are going to change somewhat by going daily. And I'd argue you start to see the wide variety and the intellectual capital, as I like to say, the richness of this scene by just looking at it daily, and it's like, wow, there continues to be very provocative, interesting art. You know, fun to look at art. It's very fun, as you see in this work here. Something that's kind of lost sometimes, you know, when you're, not always, but sometimes in, you know, contemporary art shows. So all to say, here is Sabato with the Wright brothers, I believe. Actually, it's not the Wright brothers. It's someone else. Let me show you. So let's see if I can unminimize this. This is with Art of the Millennium. It was part of an artist in residency with two other artists. We'll take a quick look at the other artists too. Let's see what this is here. 14 bis Le Oiseau de Proie, 1906 by Sabato, a tribute to an OG. The 14 bis was one of the first successful airplanes managing to take off and land on its own in front of an excited Parisian public at the Bagatelle game field in 1906. So a very early plane. It is not the Wright brothers, interestingly. I wondered about this whole theme. I mean, it's an interesting theme that Sabato has chosen. Love the composition here of the... It's almost like this old plane, it's like it didn't fit in the composition, so he had to, you know, make it vertical to fit in. I don't know if that's what's going on here. I assume this isn't how the original plane looked, but it's I love that. I absolutely love that. To me, it makes it poetic, more poetic. A nice little kind of cloud here, too, for good measure. It needed something over there. Let's put a cloud in, or a little bit of something. Very good. Balancing out the composition. Adding, also contrasting. It's a little faded here. Also contrasting this kind of chaos here with the hard rectangles, right? The geometry. So cool, you know, theme here. So another one here, Santos Dumont, number 6 over Parc Saint Cloud, 1901. So another early aviation experiment here. Let me see if, there we go, from Sabato, as part of this Artist in Residency series. So I'm not sure if they actually go somewhere. I assume it's a digital art in residency. The number 6 was a legendary dirigible airship built by the Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos Dumont in 1901. It won the Deutsche de la Meurthe Prize by completing a round trip from the Aero Club at Parc Saint Cloud to the Eiffel Tower and back within 30 minutes. Santos Dumont became the toast of Paris when he donated all of the 100,000 franc prize, I mean a lot of money back then, I imagine, to his crew and to the poor. Maybe he was already rich, maybe he wasn't. And here we are, you know, 125 years later, celebrating this individual, celebrating in art. So good for Alberto Santos Dumont. And great, I love the colors of the skies. These beautiful, almost sunset, dusk type skies. Beautiful work here. Again, on Art of this Millennium, Santos Dumont number 9, La Baladeuse, piloted by Ada de Acosta. The number 9 was the smallest of Alberto Santos Dumont's airships. It was easy to maneuver, and Santos Dumont would famously fly it around the streets of Paris. In June 1903, Ada de Acosta, a 19-year-old American socialite, became the first woman to pilot an aircraft, taking this number 9 to a polo match while Santos Dumont followed her on his bicycle. So, it really captured the imagination. At the time, I suspect, air flight, right? There it's like human progress. You wonder to a certain degree, in beautiful red and pink sky from Sabato there, I think it's golden kind of airship, as it's called, with these cycling gradients and beautiful propeller. You wonder if the reason, you wonder if Sabato has a kind of metaphor going on here with, it doesn't seem like we're that early in digital art as these airships, but maybe, early days in digital art, that's me more reading that into it. But interesting piece here, an interesting series from Sabato, who's always interesting. Here's another work before we go back to the other two artists in the series. Sabato also released this on Tezos. Those are on Ethereum, I believe. And here, this is from the CorelDRAW Archaeology series. I think it's data bending. I think it's a black sheep. .cdr CorelDRAW clip art, pixelated CorelDRAW clip art using the rasterized thumbnail preview data embedded in the clip art file. Additional glitches were created by upscaling in XN views. So you see like this kind of stuff here. So I think data bending is what this is called, I think. And part of the CorelDRAW series here, work studies creating CorelDRAW 4 on an emulated 95 machine. Always great documentation there. And yeah, one of my favorite series, actually, by Sabato. I actually picked up these two one-of-ones here. These early, that was probably a couple of years ago. The first works in the series, Rosie's Birthday Cake Rasterized. It was 2 years ago. CorelDRAW Archaeologies, rare one-of-ones from Sabato. So these are great, as you see. There's something just very fun about this series, and there's a couple with animations as well. I love the karate guy. I thought there was some. Isn't this larger than this? Because there are some with animations. Anyways, let's just click on that. See if we go to first page. Okay, there we go. And there we go. Yeah, like the police car, the Venice one, the gondola. These are great. So just really, really cool work here. Pixel art. I guess glitched out pixel art from Sabato. Also in the artist in residence here, as you see, we had two other artists. We had Aditya and Yudho. I'm pretty sure I've shown Yudho's work before, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of looks like a Buddha, doesn't it? Who is being pixelated out and animated in black and white. And then we also have, I think, Aditya. Here we go. Toxic patterns. And this is funny, kind of an office, maybe a commentary on the office of a certain kind. So interesting work there, again, on Art of the Millennium. That's called Toxic Patterns. Here's data bending, very quickly for us. It's the process of manipulating a media file of a certain format using software designed to edit files of another format. Distortions in the media. So I think that's what was going on there with the CorelDRAW thumbnails being opened in other programs. I think that's what's going on there. Distortions in the medium typically occur as a result, and the process is frequently employed in glitch art. It's data bending. So data bending is derived from circuit bending, which is kind of the hardware version of this, in which objects such as children toys, effects pedals, keyboards are deliberately short-circuited by bending the circuit board to produce erratic and spontaneous sounds. Now, you could argue the Prepared Piano by John Cage was an early kind of, because what are you doing? You're kind of incorporating chance into the mix here, into the process, into your creative process. So again, randomness and chance is a kind of, very modern. Again, I'm tempted to see this as, even though we can stretch it back to, I would argue, when we first started seeing brush strokes, because you don't control each bristle of the brush. And, and that, I would argue, say with Titian and Tintoretto, that was creating a natural contrast that they fully appreciated, right? And they go, like, and I don't know if they'd put it in the sense of that's randomness and that's order and therefore there's contrast. But I think they saw contrast, and that just visually it appealed because of the contrast. But I would argue, just as we look at, sometimes people talk about Machiavelli or Shakespeare as kind of the first moderns, you could argue this incorporation of randomness, I'd argue, is inherently modern. And we still use it to this day in Glitch. That is the thesis here. Anyway, so very interesting. So busy day today. We have Noah Pred on Metamedia's digital art tools. Very cool use of multiple layers in your NFT. You can basically choose which layers to turn on and off. Again, incorporating randomness. What is the work? Is there a final work, or is it just a multitude, so to speak, of works? So that is today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern in New York. Come join us and just join the conversation. They're really fun. And Noah's a cool guy. Know him from Berlin. He is in Portugal now. Also, we have, and let's just do this. I prefer to put the show there. This is from a couple of days ago. Pixel Lord, artists haven't yet realized the importance of art on Bitcoin. And I think this is generally true. Not exclusively true, but generally true. I agree with that, just based on how much I see being minted on, or inscribed on Bitcoin, or put as a stamp, for that matter. The limitations and technical barrier makes it even more challenging, but that's fair. So again, I put a 10 kilobyte work. It only costs $10. At one point I paid $100 or $90 for that. It's really cheap right now, even despite the high Bitcoin price. And if Bitcoin really, I'd say there's like a 50% chance that Bitcoin really moves at some point in the next year. Now's your chance to put art on Bitcoin. It's going to get really tricky, I would argue, if we get a $250,000 Bitcoin and then we have fees that are going up, etc. Some people have described, Bitcoin computing power as the most valuable computing power on the planet. And right now it's super cheap. So let's see. All speculative. The limitation, and yeah, so you have to make it small, as Pixel Lord is saying. I wanted to highlight that comment because I totally agree that it is not really, so I don't mind that. That is where I'm hanging out right now, or what I'm making work for, because I see a window of opportunity really there. So comment/show. Thank you, Neural Divine. Great to have you watching. Awesome work. B, going for Guinness World Record, Adrian. I have to break my own record of 80 shows, and I may purposely just not worry about it. I may just not put out a show, say, tomorrow. I feel like there's lots for people to catch up on. And in a sense, part of the, challenge of me doing this daily as I have been is to see if I can shorten the show. And I have half succeeded. I'd like to shave off another 10 minutes. And if we can do that, I can always make it longer if I want to later. But so really just trying to restructure the show. It's literally creating new neuron connections so that I can go back to those neural connections in order to create a 40-minute show rather than an hour-and-a-half show. Let's continue. Thank you for the comment. And let's see. Maybe I just put out 10-minute shows on short days would also be fun. Martin Bruce, great to hear from you, the artist who did this wonderful, brilliant work of art there. August Ground, The Vicissitudes, The Mystery. Hilarious. And Kurt Hustle Collective, awesome to hear from you. Wonderful artists there, releasing that great work on Tezos. So this is Luke 500 continuing to update us on what is happening with rodeo transactions. This was super revealing and interesting. I'm not sure if it's for the reason, let's see what Luke 500 says. Rodeo's revenue at an all-time high this month, just in the first week of the year. Check the Dune dashboard, secondary revenues at all-time high too, but you look at the secondary revenue. So the primary revenue, it was $50,000. The secondary revenue, if I'm reading this correctly, is only $416 for January so far. That's the little orange part there. So there's the secondary there when they start. So that's pretty interesting because, as I was corrected on earlier, the reason that rodeo kind of, blew up was because of the secondary. But we're not really seeing, $416 versus the $50,000 of the primary. So very revealing, and really, I think gives you a double take, actually. I like the US dollar value because I'm sure they have to pay the bills in fiat. I appreciate that too, Luke. I think, yeah. In recent spaces hosted by Timepieces, which I strongly recommend to listen to, Saturnial very candidly said the revenues up until last month are yet to cover the platform operational costs, just FYI. Right, so they probably brought in $25,000. So yeah, I guess they have salaries to pay and whatnot. So it's not easy. It's a very competitive business, these NFT platforms. They're not necessarily like big money makers here. So let's see what happens. So thank you for sharing that, Luke, and super interesting. And again, I actually found the secondary borderline shocking there. So now we've been corrected. Here, look at this brilliant work of art. This is Nov 1914. Not sure what that says in Spanish. Muy lejos. And so look at how beautiful it is, though. Just interestingly beautiful. Again, challenging, and I challenge you, dear viewer, to imagine you're in a contemporary art gallery, and then you see something like this. Like, that's pretty interesting. If this were like, it's pretty different. We're seeing some pretty interesting experimentation here. Wonderful colors too. So beautiful, challenging work here from Nov 1914. Maybe bringing in $3. If it's 17 cents, 10 cents would be $1.50. So let's call it $2.50. But, in Rodeo's defense, maybe Nov 1914 would have released this work at all. Right? So had there not been a kind of a space for it. So it kind of harkens back to the all of the above kind of mindset here. And at the end of the day, as I've kind of long said, the market, the free market is the beating heart of this scene. If the artists want to be paid, or they feel like they're not being paid on Rodeo, like where are they going to go? If they're already on Tezos, they'll probably go back. Would be, or at least they'll do both. Because at a certain point, if you're getting 17 cents and you're making 20 sales, hey, if it's just additional and work you went to released anyway, that's great. But if it's a replacement, almost to Rick Ostenbrook's point last show, if you're putting your, fanciest works on there, it may be, from a financial point of view, it may not be the greatest. So it's just kind of interesting. More interesting work here from Nov, playing with these like what look like 3D brushes, almost like a hard drop shadow going on here, and managing to take a tricky looking thing like this 3D brush and making it work here. Very creative way of trying to make some like beautiful art out of this brush here. A little bit of gradients in there for good measure. Here's another piece here. And again, if you're not used to Nov 1914's work, you might wonder what's going on here. But if you've been watching, Nov 1914 as we have for at least a year and a half, you go, oh, what is this? How interesting what Nov 1914 is doing here. Look, it is fuzzed out. What's going on here? So again, kind of makes a space for these kind of works, and bringing in, I guess, times 17 cents, maybe $3. And, maybe if you put out if these things are just being kind of put out left, right, and center, maybe an extra $20 a day, that's not a bad thing, right? That's still $20 a day. As I always say, if you can make $100 US a day, you're getting pretty close to living off your art, I would argue. What is that, $52,000 a year? Is that, no, 300, that'd be 36,000. If you make $100 a day for 365 days, it's $36,500 US, which in Canada makes a difference. So it's a salary. It's not a wonderful salary, but it is so it's kind of a nice metric there. So here's Ed Marola. This is on Object. Edition of 51, $2 each. A few have sold, kind of like a snake. Playing with the kind of sampled brush that is being dragged and creating a kind of snake going through these little hurdles or gates. Kind of a nice combination of this kind of brush pattern, brush mark making for the ground here. Nice flat sky for contrast. I mean, these are, in retrospect, it's easy to say, oh, that's cool. Tough decisions. Like, these are decisions that are made by someone who's made a lot of art, I would argue. Very cool work. I even like this Time Is at the bottom there. Cool title. Here is Edward Visco. Take a seat here. This was in the pixel art section, and let me see if I brought this up. I did. Kind of a fun piece here, and it almost looks like AI when you look up close. Is this an AI artwork? It's hard to say, but if I had to guess, that is quite something. Is this an AI pixel artwork? From a distance, you can't even tell. I mean, it's quite interesting for those of us who have experimented with creating pixel art with AI. It is in the pixel art section. I guess you could call it both. I love that carpet there. Take a seat here. Interesting. Very interesting, because it's weirdly distorted. And artists have played with this kind of distorted pixel art that's in AI. We seem to see a little bit of that there. But from a distance, looks quite convincing. You know, if you're, like another thing that could happen, like in a sense, like if you wanted to get more of a pure looking pixel artwork, you could simply export this as, I don't know, 200 by 100 or whatever it is in Photoshop GIF, and then it would probably naturally just kind of approximate and create that pixel. That pixelation. Interesting couch in the landscape. Beautiful. Here's Francois Gamma. 30. I do get the sense that the energy, even like it's been like, how long has it been since rodeo's been a thing? I'd say less than a month. And here we are, case 30 minutes. Beautiful work here. Francois Gamma. Interesting kind of piece. We have another one, 48 minutes, but 19 hours left. So we'll see how this does. We'll see if the energy on the platform sticks. So cool, kind of pixelated abstract. Here's another one. Kamau is the artist. Generative art created in Google Sheets. Exported as PDF, converted to JPEG. And here we have 90 mints. I saw this in eBoy, who I believe is a duo. I saw this in eBoy's. Interesting when you look up close in their collection. Interesting when you look up close, you see that spreadsheet software. And of course, you think of Greg Nikshamika doing the spreadsheet software as well. Here is Gogolitis on Tezos. Heart connection. Speed of love is greater than the speed of light. And here we see some little hearts here. And this very kind of noisy, active space here. Almost looks like shattered glass, an interesting size, interesting frame. Looks like it is designed for 16 by 9, fit to screen as it is. Exactly, so it fits on a screen, 300 by 169, 196 colors, 64 frames, and I believe it's a GIF, it is. And one offer coming in, edition of 20 on Tezos. Here is Sophie Ogor, Jan Stamp, a gift, one of one. And again, this kind of avant-garde pixel art here, maybe I can make it larger. As you see, pretty interesting piece. Seems to be a little figure here, maybe some letters, and a little bit of movement here coming through the outline. So just interesting work from Sophie Ogor as usual. And that was a gift to Pizza Pirate. Continuing on, here's Ernesto Ash, A Digital Dream, or The Pondering of the Crypto Artist. So another very small work here. And we see what looks like black and white. This is kind of work that would you could put on Bitcoin. Not sure if these are pixelated, though. So interesting texture here within here. So interesting contrast, interesting abstract. Nice tiny abstract, fully on-chain. Interestingly, edition of 150 Tezos. Very interesting. Loac Me, kind of a classic OG Tezos artist here on Rodeo, doing something a little different because what I remember about Loac Me is a vector. Here it's a little more pixelated, taking kind of similar ideas and then pixelating them. How are they doing here? 123, so bringing in maybe $15, $16. January 2025. And here is Bocchetto, 67 minted. I think this was also eBoy, the pioneering pixel artist who's on Rodeo now. We're going to see works by them shortly. So Manning, that was in their collection. So just kind of a cool architectural work, kind of retro green and black screen. Continuing on, here's Manadol, 272 minted. That is pretty good. So bringing in maybe $40. Celestial Feline, A Moment Among the Stars, Forever Feline, hand pixelated and animated 1-bit. Brilliant animation here. As you can see, kind of going at different cycle rates, so to speak, different speeds, seemingly. You see the landscape in the background. You see the fast windmill. You see the tails. You see the shooting star. You know, I'm guessing this is like 150 by 150 two-color image. It's quite complex. I would actually argue what's going on here. So cool work from Manidal as ever. Here's eBoy, Googly Grix. This 115 minted, so not I think the other one, they had something like 700. Shall we look quickly? Let's just see. It was quite a high number. 823 on the first one that they did. So interesting. So let's see what happens. 115, Googly Grix 3, and here we saw Googly Grix 1 the other day. Again, pioneering pixel artists, and here's some more googly eyes. Googly Grix 2, 183. And there is Kiro commenting. So interesting pieces here, cool pixel art. Again, from true pioneers back in 2002, is from what I understand, out of Germany, making, I think, a duo out of Germany making pixel art. As I look at the sky here for the latest updates, this was interesting too. Tim Santel, Unknown Preciousness, and an old cassette done with ASCII. And so quite interesting. I've never actually, it looks like it's been processed is what I'm trying to say here. Because you see all this little extra stuff. Like this looks like ASCII that's kind of gone through some sort of rendering, maybe even like a 1-bit rendering. It seems like a two-part process. I don't think I remember I've seen the dots, not the diagonals of ASCII. So all to say, this is super interesting. Of course, I've done work. When they had that, I really am sad that type.art, maybe Object, I don't know, it would be great if Object could create basically a type.art interface and just incorporate it into because that was a great platform. I still want to use it, but it's gone now, unfortunately. So anyways, ASCII work, interesting piece here. And let's just see, 66 minted, and let's continue. Here is Haiti Rocket edition of 420. That will probably start to be burned shortly. Selling quite a few, 7 at 23 Tezos, $30 each. Energy, kind of playing with that 3D animation we were seeing earlier, but then seeming to add another layer of pixelation or of processing on top, seemingly. So interesting work there from the ever-interesting Haiti Rocket. Here is Mumbleboy, Lady Flash. Adding again this kind of digital brush into this combination of physical collage, digital collage, and everything, and kind of sharp edges, soft edges. This is an edition of 2 for 10 Tezos, and 1 available, I believe. Rosetto, Ride, 194 minted so far, so doing well here. Kind of a double skull on fire with these awesome eyes. Perfect eyes for the skateboard here. Cool work there from Rosetto, minting well. Here is, I'm not sure, this is older, but I'm not sure if I showed this during December, so I wanted to make sure. This is Yuri on Super Rare. Great kitchen, kind of kitchen sink. Kind of looks like it's from above, but simultaneously you see the pan from the side, and then an interesting banana peel here. So just kind of an interesting, a lot of interesting things going on at work. Love the sponge, like that that noise filter working perfectly for the sponge. Almost looks photographic there. Cooking show is over. Now it is time to clean everything, and that is a reserve of 0.14 ETH. Nightmares with the Myth. So putting out works every day. 113 minted so far, 10 hours left. So interesting piece here by the Myth. Kind of interestingly suggestive here in the forehead. And bleeding eyes and mouth and coffee, just kind of looking like stream of consciousness. I assume TM means the Myth. Here's Uxie on Tezos, edition of 22. And we see kind of the hooded figure with the computer head in a theater here. Kind of reminiscent of that Mark Zuckerberg image where everybody's wearing the VR helmets, and then there's Zuckerberg walking through the theater with no helmet on. Kind of reminds me of that. And here everybody's phone is plugged in. Interesting piece, and that's selling out at 22 Tezos, $30 each, $31 each. Nice sale. That's like $660. So continuing on, Kel 1 Art. I picked this up. This is an edition of 1 for only a Tezos. So a cool artist too. Bread, real loaf. There's some carrots. So nice little still life. I think I learned about Kel 1 from Waffles way back, like a year or two ago, in their collection. So Bread, edition of 1. There are other really cheap 1 of 1s available in Kel 1's page, on Kel 1's page. Kel 1. Ritual or Lifestyle, Jake Studios. So kind of looking like a JPEG ritual here with maybe the Jake Studios figure, not sure. And a old screen with some skulls on it and kind of a tropical background here. And upside down, are those upside down JPEGs or just upside down clouds in the JPEGs? Awesome. So 44 Tezos on Object. Here's Marcel's Underground, edition of 1, and these were just given to artists. Kind of an interesting GIF here. Interesting selection around the clouds here, keeping it purposely rough. And so I think this was just sent to people, transferred. And another interesting piece here is Kenji. Abstract work here. This is on Sealed, which I think is on Ethereum, as you see here, 0.07 ETH. And just an interesting, I guess you'd call it an animated abstract, kind of a video, playing with video compression a little bit too. Quite beautiful and original. Almost like, looks like the Eye of Horus there. Hard to say. Here finally, well, almost finally, is Lucero. Is Nebular on Object, something called Lucero. Soothing music here. Kind of impressionistic. So creating feelings, creating just interesting vibes there. That is $3, edition of 15, or sorry, 3 Tezos. Edition of 15, 1 sold so far. Here's Renki, Ogino. And interesting animated abstract using the blue and the red and these distortions. So seeming to combine a few of the things that Renki has been experimenting with, interestingly. And going into AI, Marina Amadova, Rodeo Reverie. That could almost be the title of this, of the last week of shows. Hey, so here we're discussing pixelation and AI pixelation. It's kind of what we're talking about here. It's not perfect, interestingly, right? And so AI artwork, Maria Manadova on Marina. Let me get this perfect. Marina Amadova, sorry, on Rodeo AI artwork. 59 minted so far, and 59 minted. So pretty cool work. And continuing on, we have Artie with a few other of these kind of AI pixelated works, as you see here. Interesting, again, we're getting that AI pixelation, which is kind of an interesting phenomena, right? I mean, in terms of novelty and newness in our, digital experience, this AI pixelation is quite an interesting subject that we've seen, I think, at least 3 times now, this show. Nice kind of style. I don't know if this is the AI that created this style, kind of like a very thin, like 1 pixel dark brush and then coloring with a larger brush, seemingly. Interesting. Here you see it again, Deviate, 60 minted. So another, again, AI pixel art piece, basically. Pixel painting. Interesting composition there too. Deviate 10. So another work, 73. You wonder if these are like super quickly made, and then, again, like if you're an AI artist that wants to release a ton, because sometimes they can, maybe Rodeo is perfect for that sort of situation, right? So time and a place, I guess, is how I'd put it. So again, you look from a distance, it's like pixel art. From up close, though, it's a lot rougher, interestingly. So kind of new frontiers here. So I like to say Skamra. With a beautiful, another beautiful AI artwork. I don't think we saw this one. As you see, playing a little bit with pixelation here, but much more kind of distorted. Quite fascinating. Has the richness of a canvas, really, the textured richness of a canvas. Here's another one, 77 mints, more rust, stable diffusion, and let's take a closer look at here. And you see again these kind of imperfect squares, these imperfect pixels, so to speak. Great textures here as ever. Kind of a close-up work. And here's White Solitude, a AI painter, as you see, with incredible brushwork using AI. Pretty amazing what they're doing here. Has really kind of cracked the code to a certain degree on the brushes. So beautiful painting by White Solitude. How did that do? Only 27, but not bad. And here is No Hygiene with kind of a wild work. This on object with some text, and then one of these angel figures in green at the bottom. This is 20 Tezos. And here is Canic Zapata, Cotidiano. So, of course, we had Canic Zapata on the Spaces. It was awesome. And here playing with synths, beautiful colors, and AI, and some sort of video here, interestingly. So this is on Rodeo, 79 minted, and still available. And that's your show, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. We have a wonderful space coming up in a few hours here today, so come join us. Until next time, take care.